Hello, my soul family. Welcome to my School of Light and welcome back to the Spiritual Book Club. My name is Christy Ramirez. I am a soul coach and spiritual teacher here at the school. I love showing up for us. Currently, this fall season 2022, we are gathering twice a week. One of the days that we meet are for the Spiritual Book Club and the other day are for our class. Every season, I am teaching a new class. It's so amazing. So today, let us get started with reading and continuing Dante's Divine Comedy. So in last week's gathering, our second gathering, we were not able to finish Inferno because it is quite extensive, and we left off in Canto 29. So this is where we're going to continue today, and we're definitely finishing up Inferno today so that next class we can start fresh with Purgatory. There are 34 cantos in Inferno. That's about like 20 more pages that we have for today. And I always like to do a little introduction before we get started with our actual reading. And it's all to compilate together these themes, these ideas, these topics, these concepts that come up in our reading and help us to apply it in our day-to-day life, as well as also teach us spiritual lessons, because that's a huge part of why we study these books. It's not just to read it, it's not just to even learn it, it's actually to apply the lessons from the book. And what we're learning so far with the first book of Inferno, because this is a big poem composed of 3 books, which then leads us to Purgatory, which is the climbing up the mountain towards Paradiso. And right now we're actually descending down in Inferno in the glimpse, in this vision that Dante had. We're journeying along with him and we're witnessing what happens to these souls in the afterlife when they have lived a life of sin. Okay, and this is important because we all know that there are 7 main sins, but Dante even expands and elaborates on not only these sins but everything else in between as well that might not be categorized within these 7 main deadly sins. And that's why it's so complicated down there. And that's why also every winter I do bring in A Course in Miracles, which I always say is my favorite book of all, because it is Jesus' teachings helping us in the purgatory stage to help you to reach Paradiso. And that's how to teach us how to live through our higher self, through love, and not choosing the ego, which will keep you stuck in fear. Very low vibrational. And of course, this is parallel and mirroring everything that is Inferno-based emotions. Everything is very low, dark vibrational. It's a very dark wood. It's a very void course, because you're void off course from your true soul path. And it's just very, not only gloomy, but it's just very foggy, because everything down there is foggy. It's all an illusion. People who have committed suicide, for example, also are sent down there. And why did they go to those extremes? Is because they were living in a fog. They weren't seeing clearly. They were not living through the spiritual eyes. They weren't spiritually cleansed as well, which is what you do in purgatory. But then also you maintain when you're in Paradiso already. If you're already living your heaven on earth, then you have a duty to teach others how to get there as well, right? Because we've all been there. We've all been through this journey. We've all had to climb after the descent, and then eventually we ascend, right? From every high, there's always an extreme low. And we are learning about these extreme lows first, because like anything in life, in order to reach the top, you first need to be at the bottom. And you need to know what it feels like to be at the ultimate, utmost low. And this can be anything. It could be emotional, it could be mental, it could be something that you're dealing with physically. Everybody's been through very low moments in life. And this is where we can all relate as well, which is the beautiful thing that brings us all together. Because no 2 souls will have had the exact identical experiences in their life, but they can definitely relate to what they learned from those experiences, which definitely can bring them together. And then when multiple souls come together and discuss this and talk about it and feed off each other's thoughts, experiences, feelings, and emotions, then they can all come into a nice, beautiful conclusion and very healing experience that will raise the vibration of everyone involved. And that's why I show up here to the Spiritual Book Club, because everybody that joins me and listens to me in my videos is gonna benefit from this vibrationally. And of course, you know, hopefully in the future we can also do these in person, which this is my, actually, that was my original thinking when I came up with the Spiritual Book Club. It was actually supposed to be an in-person gathering, but then, you know, things happen around the world, and then I decided, why not make these videos timeless, and anybody new on the journey can always look back, start these series whenever it is that they're awakening, whenever it is that they feel ready, whenever it is that they feel called for. So these are, you know, it's like a legacy that I'm leaving for anybody who comes after me in this wave of spiritual awakening and are able to benefit as well from the teachings that I taught and that I also learned at the same time with Dante here with us and every other book at the Spiritual Book Club. So I hope that this inspired you to come and look at what the School of Light is about. Check it out, listen to my videos, and let it change your life. Let it inspire you, let it heal you, and let it also enrich you with the spiritual wisdom. Have an amazing and beautiful day. We're about to get started here at the School of Light. Grab your cup of coffee, and I'll see you all here. Namaste. Alright, my soul family, let's get started with continuing where we left off. We are in Canto 29, so if you have this book, definitely read along with me. And if not, I break it down very slowly so that you all can really envision the words that we are reading and then also be able to interpret it along with me. So let's get started, and again, get comfortable, right? The multitude of people and the many wounds had made my eyes so tear-filled that they longed to stop and weep. But Virgil, which is his mentor on this journey, said to me, why are you still gazing? Why are you still looking? Why are you being enmeshed emotionally? Because that's the thing about us light workers and people who help on the journey, spiritual teachers like Virgil, if they get sucked by what others are experiencing, that might be dooming, but again, it might also be very deserved, right? He's teaching him that you're not to have too much compassion for those that deserve their karma, right? You just move on and go. You observe, you witness, but you don't dwell and overly be empathic about it, because that's a waste of energy, and that's not going to do anybody good as well. Because if Virgil, the spiritual teacher here, sinks in his emotions along with those who are suffering, how is he going to help them rise and get up themselves, right? So, and that of course applies more to the living souls that are sinking and that are suffering, because they have an opportunity and they still have a chance to turn around, right? Make their wrongs right, go through the stage of purgatory in this living life. But of course, once you're in the afterlife, it's like too late already. So he says, why are you still gazing? Why does your sight still rest down there on the sad, mutilated shadows? Very specific and interesting choice of verbs that he uses and adjectives. Mutilated shadows. We all know what the word mutilated means. It means, you know, stripped and cut off of your limbs, which of course is a metaphor here for the ego being cut off. It's like when you see in classic tarot cards, a lot of the times when we see the death card, we see a person that's headless. Back in the day, this was literal. People were beheaded for committing sins, for betrayal, for treachery. But it is also for those who are overly proud, right? It's like a punishment that will force you to be humble on the journey, right? As if your sins, or as if your wrongdoings, as if your secret behavior would not have consequences, right? You did not do so at the other chasms. Think, if you wish to number them, that the valley circles 22 miles and the moon is already underneath our feet. So they're kind of trying to hurry up before the daylight comes in, because they're in the darkness right now, in the night. The time is short now that is given us, and there are other things to view than those that you see. I then replied, had you noticed the reason why I looked? Perhaps you might still have allowed me to stay. Meanwhile, the guide, which is Virgil, was moving on, and I went behind him, right? You have to move on. You can't dwell on the mistakes that other people are doing, because that's going to hold you back on your spiritual journey of ascension. And that's where we learn the power of detachment, right? And so I went behind him, making my reply and adding, now, in the hollow where I held my gaze, I believe a spirit of my own blood laments on the guilt that cost so greatly here, right? Any guilt, any blood that you spill has eternal consequences. And that is just the living proof of hell that they are journeying right now. Then the master said, do not let your thoughts be distracted by him or by any other soul in their wrong, in their shadow, right? Attend to something else, something that's higher vibrational, something that is of light, that's going to benefit on you on your journey. Let him stay there. That is just so powerful right there, because this can apply to anybody in this life right now who's trying to help someone who's in their darkness, because that's not going to do not only the other person good, but yourself either. I saw him point to you at the foot of the little bridge and threatened angrily with his finger, and I heard them call him Jerry del Bello. You were so entangled then with him who once held Altaforte that you do not look that way, so he departed. I said, oh my guide, his violent murder made him indignant, not yet avenged on his behalf by any that shares his shame. Therefore, I guess, he went away without speaking to me, and by that has made me pity him the more. Right? We pity those who are not even willing to pick themselves up and see their wrongdoings. So we talked as far as the first place on the causeway that would have revealed the next valley right to its floor if it had been lighter. When we were above the last cloister of Malebolge, so that its lay brothers could be seen, many groans pierced me whose arrows were barbed with pity, at which I covered my ears with my hands. Such pain there was as there would be if the diseases in the hospitals of Valdiciana, Maremma, and Sardinia between July and September were all rife in one ditch. A stench arose from it, such as issues from putrid limbs. Very disturbing description here, right? And interesting that it says that this all happened between July and September. And we are currently November as we're reading this, so all of summer basically. We descended on the last bank of the long causeway, again on the left, and then my sight was clear, down to the depths where infallible justice, the minister of the Lord on high, punishes the falsifiers that it accounts for here. So there is always going to be justice, right? That's a promise from God himself. I do not think that it would have been a greater sadness to see the people of plague-ridden Aegina when the air was so malignant that every animal, even the smallest worm, was killed. And afterwards, as poets say for certain, the ancient race was restored from the seed of ants, than it was to see the spirits languishing in scattered heaps through that dim valley. This one lay on his belly, that on the shoulders of the other, and some were crawling along the wretched path. So step by step we went without a word, gazing at and listening to the sick who could not lift their bodies. I saw two sitting leaning on each other as one pan is leant to warm against another. They were marked with scabs from head to foot, and I never saw a stable lad his master waits for, or one who stays awake unwillingly, use a curry comb as fiercely as each of these two clawed himself with his nails, because of the intensity of their itching that has no other relief. And so the nails dragged the scurf off as a knife does the scales from bream, or other fish with larger scales. My guide began to speak. O you who strip your chain mail with your fingers and often make pincers of them, tell us if there are any Italians among those here inside, and may your nails be enough for that task for eternity. One of them replied, weeping, we are both Italians whom you see so mutilated here, but who are you who inquire of us? And then the guide said, which is Virgil, I am one who with this living man descends from steep to steep and mean to show him hell. So he's just showing him, of course, we already know that he's here to learn what not to do, right? Then the mutual prop broke, and each one turned, trembling towards me, along with others that heard him by the echo. The good master addressed me directly, saying, tell them what you wish. And I began as he desired, so that your memory will not fade from human minds in the first world, but will live for many sons. Tell us who you are and of what race. Do not let your ugly and revolting punishment make you afraid to reveal yourselves to me. And then the one replied, I was Grifolino of Arezzo, and Albero of Siena had me burned. But what I died for did not send me here. It is true that I said to him, jesting, I could lift myself into the air in flight, and he who had great curiosity but little sense wished me to show him that art, and only because I could not make him Daedalus, he caused me to be burned by one who looked on him as a son. But to the last chasm of the 10 Minos, who cannot err, condemned me for the alchemy that I practiced in the world. And remember, this is from the viewpoint of a Christian poet, right? Alchemy used in the wrong way always has punishments, right? And then I said to the poet, now was there ever a people as vain as the Sienese? Certainly not the French by far. Or even if you're trying to mess with fate, that of course also has consequences. At which the other leper, hearing me, replied to my words, what of Strica, who contrived to spend so little, and Nicola, who first discovered the costly use of cloves in that garden Siena, where such seed takes root, and that company in which Sascia of Asciano threw away his vineyard and his vast forest, and the Abbagliato showed his wit. But so that you may know who seconds you like this against the Sienese, sharpen your eye on me, so that my face may reply to you, so you will see I am Capocchio's shadow, who made false metals by alchemy, and you must remember, if I know you rightly, how well I aped nature. So he made false metals by alchemy, trying to turn it into gold, but the big point and message here is trying to falsify anything in life, right? Metaphorically. And this can also be like, literal, falsifying money, whatever the case may be. But anything done with wrong intentions, basically, is what is punished. Now let us move on to Canto 30. And let me take a little sip of coffee here.